China in 2025, a report of hard truths. As of 2025, China stands at a crossroads. After decades of explosive growth, the world's second-largest economy is entering a new era, one defined not by expansion, but by transformation, constraint, and global confrontation. The old engines of growth, real estate speculation, cheap exports, and debt-fueled infrastructure, are sputtering. In their place, Beijing is betting everything on a new formula: technological sovereignty, state-directed industrial policy, and global influence through economic power. This report examines China not through the lens of hope or fear, but through facts. We will cover the economy, the innovation race, the real estate crisis, demographic collapse, geopolitical strategy, and the limits of China's ascent. No sugarcoating, no propaganda, just evidence. Economic reality, slowing growth, strategic shift. China's economy is no longer growing at 9% a year. In 2025, its official GDP growth hovers around 4–5%, but independent analysts place it closer to 3–9%, and that's the optimistic baseline. Pre-pandemic forecasts predicted 5% annual growth through 2030. The real estate bust, weak consumer confidence, and youth unemployment have slashed those projections permanently. Why the slowdown? 3 structural problems. First, the property sector. Once 25–30% of GDP is in freefall. Since 2021, home prices in major cities have dropped 20–30%. Developers like Evergrande, Country Garden, and Sunac defaulted on over $500 billion in debt. New home sales have collapsed. Local governments, which relied on land sales for 40% of revenue, are bankrupt. They can no longer fund schools, hospitals, or infrastructure. The ripple effects are paralyzing. Second, domestic consumption remains weak. Despite massive government discounts, up to 20% off cars, appliances, and electronics, households are saving, not spending. Why? Because jobs are scarce, wages are stagnant, and social safety nets are thin. Youth unemployment officially sits near 15%, but some estimates exceed 20%. Millions of college graduates can't find stable work. Third, foreign investment is fleeing. Once drawn by cheap labor and a booming market, multinationals now see China as high risk. Regulatory crackdowns on tech, education, and finance, forced tech transfers, geopolitical tensions, and US-led export controls have turned CEOs cautious. Apple, Tesla, and Samsung are shifting supply chains to Vietnam, India, and Mexico. Foreign direct investment into China fell 30% in 2024, the steepest drop in decades. Yet not all is decline. Exports remain surprisingly strong. China is still the world's factory, producing over 70% of solar panels, 60% of EVs, and 56% of EV batteries. Its dominance in critical supply chains gives it leverage. The U.S. imports nearly 50% of its China-sourced goods from sectors deemed critical dependencies, from rare earths to electronics. Europe is even more exposed in high-value green tech. Beijing knows it can't rely on old models. Hence the pivot, from construction cranes to semiconductors, from property tycoons to AI engineers. The innovation surge, real or hype. China is not just copying anymore. It is innovating and fast. Consider the numbers. In 2025, China accounts for 22% of global R&D spending, up from 5% in 2000. It graduates more STEM PhDs than the US and EU combined. Chinese firms file more patents via the Patent Cooperation Treaty than any other country. In AI, quantum, nuclear power, and EVs, China is now at or near global parity. Take EVs. BYD, NIO, and Xiaomi are not just domestic players, they're global threats. BYD's Q1 2025 earnings show a 98% EPS surge. Its cars now sell in Europe, Southeast Asia, and Latin America at half the price of equivalent Teslas, without subsidies. Xiaomi's new EV uses an AI-designed die-casting process that cuts production time by 40%. In batteries, CATL dominates. It pioneered LFP, lithium iron phosphate, chemistry, once dismissed as obsolete, and now powers 40% of the world's EVs. Its sodium-ion batteries, capable of powering 12,000 homes, are being deployed across China. In AI, the story is similar. Alibaba pledged $53 billion to cloud and AI. Tencent, Baidu, and startups like Zhipu AI are racing to build large language models that rival GPT-4. In Chinese contexts, they often outperform. Huawei's Ascend AI chips now power data centers across Asia. Semiconductors remain the weak point, but even there, progress is real. SMIC, China's top chipmaker, is mass-producing 7nm chips, enough to power Huawei's new Mate 60 smartphones without US parts. It's not TSMC level, but it's sufficient for most commercial applications. And China is adding more wafer capacity in 2024 than the rest of the world combined. The innovation model is unmistakably state-driven. Made in China 2025, dual circulation, and Xi, new quality productive forces aren't slogans, they're industrial war plans. The government picks winners, floods them with capital, blocks foreign competition, and demands results. Is it sustainable? That's the trillion-dollar question. The real estate collapse, a crisis without easy fixes. China's property bubble wasn't just big, it was systemic. Local governments sold land to developers who borrowed massively to build ghost cities. Families invested life savings in pre-sold apartments, often never completed. The system worked as long as prices rose. Now it's imploding. In 2024, new home starts fell 35% year-over-year. Property investment is down 26% from its pre-pandemic trend. Over 200 developers have defaulted. Beijing is trying to stabilize the market, cutting mortgage rates, easing down payment rules, and bailing out systemically important firms. In Shanghai and Shenzhen, prices have stabilized, even risen slightly in luxury segments. But nationwide, confidence is gone. Homeownership was the Chinese dream. Now it's a liability. The fallout extends beyond construction. Steel, cement, glass, and appliance sectors are contracting. Local government revenues are collapsing, forcing cuts to public services. And because property-backed wealth comprised 70% of household assets, families feel poorer, so they spend less. Unlike the US in 2008, China cannot rely on monetary stimulus alone. Debt is already too high, total credit to GDP stands at 300%. Fiscal space is limited, and the population is shrinking. Demographics, the silent collapse. China's population peaked in 2022 at 1.41 billion. By 2050, it could fall below 1.3 billion. Births hit a record low in 2024, just 8.5 million, down from 18 million in 2016. The fertility rate is 1, far below replacement. Why? High costs of housing, education, and childcare. Women's rising education and workforce participation. And a cultural shift, many young Chinese simply don't want kids. The consequences are profound. By 2035, 1 in 4 Chinese will be over 60. The working-age population is shrinking by 5 million people per year. Pension systems face insolvency. Military recruitment is strained. Innovation suffers. Fewer young engineers, fewer risk-takers. Japan faced a similar crisis, but at a much higher per capita income. China is aging before it gets rich. Its median income is $13,000, less than 1/3 of Japan's when it began aging rapidly. No policy fix is easy. Beijing has tried cash bonuses, extended maternity leave, and even state-run dating apps. None have worked. The demographic die is cast. Geopolitics, Belt and Road, tech war, and the new order. China is not retreating from the world, it's repositioning. The Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, launched in 2013, now spans 150 countries. Over $1 trillion in loans and investments have built ports, railways, and power plants from Jakarta to Athens. But BRI is changing. Early deals were reckless. Sri Lanka's Hambantota port became a cautionary tale of debt-trap diplomacy. Now, China demands more collateral, shares in profits, and strategic access. It's less about generosity, more about control. Meanwhile, tech decoupling accelerates. The US has banned advanced chip exports, restricted cloud AI tools, and pressured allies to exclude Huawei from 5G networks. China responds with import substitution, its indigenous innovation drive. This isn't just trade, it's systemic rivalry. As Xi Jinping stated, the competition in science and technology has become the main battlefield of the global strategic competition. China's goal is clear: reduce dependence on the West, dominate emerging industries, and force the world to rely on Chinese tech. If successful, it could reshape the global order, not through tanks, but through supply chains. Limits and risks: why China might stall. Despite its momentum, China faces hard ceilings. First, innovation has limits. It excels at scaling and iteration, but breakthrough inventions remain rare. True Schumpeterian disruption, like the iPhone or mRNA vaccines, still originates in the West. China's education system prioritizes conformity over creativity. And while its AI models are strong in Chinese, they lag in global contexts. Second, financial fragility looms. Local government debt exceeds $9 trillion. Shadow banking is opaque. The banking system is stuffed with non-performing loans. A sudden property crash could trigger a banking crisis. Third, geopolitical isolation is growing. Europe is wary. India is hostile. Southeast Asia is hedging. Even global South partners are pushing back on BRI terms. China has no real allies, only transactional relationships. Fourth, internal dissent simmers. Youth disillusionment, lying flat, feminist activism, and ethnic tensions in Xinjiang and Tibet challenge the party's narrative of harmony. Finally, the US and allies are waking up. The CHIPS Act, IRA subsidies, and NATO's focus on China signal a new containment strategy, not military but techno-economic. Conclusion: a new era of managed decline or strategic ascent. China in 2025 is not the unstoppable juggernaut of 2010, nor is it collapsing. It is adapting under pressure. Its strengths are real: unmatched industrial scale, a ruthless state capable of long-term planning, and a generation of engineers and entrepreneurs pushing the frontier. Its weaknesses are structural: demographic decline, debt overhang, innovation bottlenecks, and global pushback. The West made two mistakes. First, underestimating China's ability to innovate. Second, overestimating its fragility. The truth lies in between. China will not overtake the US in total GDP by 2030, not if growth stays below 4%. But it will dominate key sectors: EVs, batteries, solar, and possibly AI infrastructure. It will become the indispensable node in global green supply chains. For the world, this means coexistence with a hybrid system: state capitalism fused with digital authoritarianism. For investors, it means opportunity amid volatility. For policymakers, it means competition without Cold War binaries. China is not sleeping, it's recalibrating, and the world must respond, not with panic but with clarity, strategy, and resolve.